Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another edition of Anniversary Albums. Today we're looking at albums that are having a significant anniversary in the month of February 2024. I had a huge list to choose from to get down to 10 picks, and it was really difficult. I left a lot of really great albums out, so please do let me know in the comments which ones I left out that you think I should have included. Let's get straight into it. The first album we're going to have a look at is having its 30th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 7th of February 1994, and that is Brave by Marillion. This may very well be my favourite Marillion album. Absolutely stunning from start to finish. It's one of my favourite concept albums of all time. I think I did a Contrarian show where we talked about concept albums, and this was one of the ones I absolutely picked. I mean, it starts off with Bridge, you know, really atmospheric. And you get Living with the Big Lie, Runaway, which is really beautiful. Goodbye to All That, which is a big, long sort of suite of songs. Wave, Mad, The Opium Den, The Slide, Standing in the Swing. Then you get the big sort of crunchy rocker, Hard as Love, the haunting Hollow Man, the beautiful anthemic Alone Again in the Lap of Luxury, which has the Now Wash Your Hands at the end. Paper Lies may be the only song on the album that I don't know how well it fits within the concept of the album, but it's still a good up-tempo rocking song. The gorgeous title track with the Elan pipes, and it's absolutely beautiful. And then it finishes with The Great Escape and Made Again. Just a stunning album. Might even be a top 10 or top 20 favourite album of all time for me. Absolutely wonderful album. The next album we're going to have a look at is having its 50th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 8th of February 1974. Debut album by this artist after he had left his previous band. And that is Eno with Here Come the Warm Jets. What a wonderful artistic statement this album is, just right out of the blocks. He was influential when he was in Roxy Music, but he was a bit in the background. You know, Brian Ferry was very much at the forefront. He was writing all the songs and all that sort of thing. Eno left after the first two Roxy Music albums and struck out on his own, and he starts off brilliantly here. You know, you've got some of his former Roxy mates helping him out, like Andy Mackay and Phil Manzanera. But you've also got Robert Fripp on here. You've got, you know, Chris Spedding, Buster Cherry Jones, John Wetton playing bass. You know, there's some really great players on this album, and there's some wonderful songs. You know, he's sort of mixing the glam rock, the art rock, getting experimental, using his electronics and his synthesizers. It's a wonderful blend. You've got Needle in the Camel's Eye. You've got the wonderful Babies on Fire. Love that song. You've got Cindy Tells Me, Driving Me Backwards, Blank Frank, Dead Finks Don't Talk. You've got the title track. There's a lot of wonderful music on this album. And he would go on and do a lot of great stuff before he would then, you know, he did a number of sort of vocal albums before he then went into the ambient and that sort of music. And then, of course, went on to become a wonderful producer and collaborator with David Bowie. And, you know, just incredible career that Brian Eno has had and still has to this day. The next album we're going to have a look at is our oldest album today. It is having its 60th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 10th of February 1964. It is the third album by this artist, and it is The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. You know, his first album was mostly covers of old folk songs, Then he had a bit of a breakthrough with Freewheeling Bob Dylan, where he was mostly writing originals, still doing a few covers. This one is all originals, and you know, it just has some of his all-time best-known songs, not least of which being the title track, The Times They Are A-Changin', still a protest anthem to this day. But you've also got the Ballad of Hollis Brown, you've got With God on Our Side, One Too Many Mornings, North Country Blues, Only a Pawn in Their Game. You've got Boots of Spanish Leather, When the Ship Comes In, really, really like that song. The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll is one of his absolute classics as well. And Restless Farewell. This is a very spare album. This is, you know, very early Bob Dylan, so it's still mostly just a guitar or a piano, the harmonica and that voice. One or two extra instruments thrown in here and there, but mostly very sparse, very spare, wonderful, wonderful 60s folk music with that wonderful literary lyrics of Bob Dylan. You just can't beat it. The next album we're going to have a look at is having its 40th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 14th of February 1984. Kind of appropriate that it was released on Valentine's Day, considering the title. That is Mr. Heartbreak by Laurie Anderson. This is her second sort of mainstream album after, I mean mainstream as in like on a major label. Nothing mainstream about Laurie Anderson, generally speaking. This comes after The Wonderful Big Science, of course. She's starting to collaborate with some wonderful musicians like Adrian Belew, Nile Rodgers, of course, Peter Gabriel. This is where you'll find the original version of Excellent Birds, which Peter Gabriel retitled as This Is the Picture for the So album. And it's the same recording, but he sort of tinkered with it and added a few extra instruments to it and that sort of thing. But the original version is here on Mr. Heartbreak. This album's definitely a little more musical, a little less sparse than Big Science. Still wonderful, odd, out there music. You've got Sharky's Day and Sharky's Night bookending the album. Love it when albums are bookended. You've got Lang d'Amour. You've got Gravity's Angel. You've got Coco Coo, Blue Lagoon, and as I said, Excellent Birds. It's a great album. Really, really wonderful. Not quite as good maybe as Big Science. I adore that album, but this album's still absolutely brilliant. Absolutely love it. The next album we're going to have a look at probably couldn't be more different from Laurie Anderson musically. It's having its 50th anniversary in the month of February. It is a debut album by this legendary band, released on the 18th of February 1974, and is Kiss, self-titled. I mean, there's just so many stone cold classic Kiss songs on this album that right up to the end of their touring, they were still playing these songs. Things like Strutter and Nothing to Lose and Deuce. But you've also got Firehouse, which is just great. Cold Gin, you know. I mean, it's just classics top to bottom, isn't it? You know, you've got Let Me Know. You've got Kissin' Time, which is a bit of a novelty thing, but it's still good. You've got the love theme from Kiss. You've got 100,000 Years. Again, another stone cold Kiss classic. And Black Diamond. I mean, goodness gracious me. You know, there must be 6 or 7 just songs that they would keep playing and keep playing and keep playing from this very first album. Just simple, brutal, hard rock. Just wonderful stuff. Love it. The next album we're going to have a look at, again, couldn't be a bit more different from the Kiss album either. Also having its 50th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 20th of February 1974. And that is Phaedra by Tangerine Dream. This was really my introduction to this band. It's wonderful, atmospheric, electronic krautrock. Just wonderful. Space music, absolute space music. You've just got the 3 tracks on here. You've got the title track, Phaedra. You've got Mysterious Semblance of the Stand of Nightmare. Sorry, there's 3 tracks on side 2. You've got Movements of a Visionary, and you've got Sequent C. So, I mean, but the title track, Phaedra, you know, sidelong epic, just absolutely wonderful music to just put on your headphones or put on your speakers at home, your home sound system, close your eyes and just let the music take you on a journey, because that's absolutely what it does. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And as I say, it was the first Tangerine Dream album I owned. I mean, I still don't own all of them, or, you know, I own a decent chunk of the sort of 70s Tangerine Dream, which for me is the essential Tangerine Dream. There's so much in their collection though, you know, they've done 60, 70 albums, something like that. It's mind-boggling. The next album we're going to have a look at was also released on the 20th of February 1974, same day as Phaedra, so having its 50th anniversary in the month of February. Again, quite different from Tangerine Dream. We're going a lot of different genres today. And that is Pretzel Logic by Steely Dan. Now, I probably only really started collecting Steely Dan seriously about 10 years ago, buying all the albums. But when I was a kid, I'd listen to, you know, we'd have classic radio on in the car. And I knew the song Ricky Don't Lose That Number. And I loved it as a kid. Just absolutely gorgeous song. One of their most famous songs, one of their biggest singles. But you've also got Night by Night. You've got the wonderful Any Major Dude Will Tell You. You've got Barrytown. You've got East St. Louis Toodaloo. I mean, you know, great. You've got Parker's Band. I mean, there's a lot of jazz references here. I mean, East St. Louis Toodaloo is a Duke Ellington cover, I think. You've got Through with Buzz. You've got the title track, Pretzel Logic. You've got With a Gun, Charlie Freak, and Monkey in Your Soul. One of my favourite Steely Dan albums, this one. I mean, it's a classic for a reason, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful album. The next album we're going to have a look at is one that's very near and dear to my heart from my youth. This was one of the first artists I got into early on. This album is a debut album again. It's having its 40th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 27th of February 1984. And that is Human Racing by Nick Kershaw. I do love me some Nick Kershaw. And this first album, he's out of the block straight away, showing what a wonderful artist he is. You know, some people just sort of pigeonhole him in the synth rock, synth pop sort of genre, and that's really, really unfair, because he can really rock out too. He's an excellent guitar player. But this has got the big, big hit, Wouldn't It Be Good, which sort of cracked open his career. But it opens with Dancing Girls, I absolutely love. You've got Drum Talk, you've got the wonderful Bogart, you've got the eccentric Gone to Pieces, all these really wonderful sped up vocals in the background and stuff. Absolutely love it. You've got the funky Shame on You. Absolutely love that. Cloak and Dagger. You've got the really atmospheric Faces. You've got I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which was the other hit off this album, although it was the first single and it didn't do very well. And then Wouldn't It Be Good came out. It was a big, big hit. And then so they re-released I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, and it ended up being a top 10 hit. So, yeah. And then the wonderful title track to close the album out. Really slow, really atmospheric, really earnest vocal from Nick Kershaw on it. Absolutely wonderful. Top to bottom, great, great debut album. Absolutely love it. The next album we're going to have a look at is having its 35th anniversary in the month of February. It was originally released on the 27th of February 1989, and that is Oranges and Lemons by XTC. Now, I've done an XTC Studio Albums Ranked. I will leave a link for that in the description. Please do give it a watch if you haven't already. This is a great album. It's not one of my absolute favorite XTC albums, but I mean, XTC never did an album that wasn't any worse than very, very good. And this is an excellent album. I mean, it starts off with The Wonderful Garden of Earthly Delights. It has The Mayor of Simpleton. That song, I absolutely cannot disengage that song from my first year of university, because even though it wasn't a big chart hit, it got played on the radio a lot here, and I used to hear it all the time when I was at university. We used to have this sort of recreational area that we'd hang out in between lectures or before lectures or whatever, and the radio would be on and this song would play all the time. It was this one and Sowing the Seeds of Love by Tears for Fears. Those are my two songs that are inextricably linked to my first year of university. But you've also got The Wonderful King for a Day. You got Here Comes President Kill Again. The Loving, sort of anthemic. Poor Skeleton Steps Out, has this sort of real sort of xylophones to give that skeleton-y feel. One of the Millions is a great Collins song. Hold Me My Daddy is very heartfelt. Merely a Man, sort of big and bombastic. Cynical Days is another great Collins song. You know, wonderful. And then you got Chalk Hills and Children is the last song on the album, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Perfect album closer as far as I'm concerned. Really lovely. It's very bright, sunny production on this album. It's very, you know, yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit much. The drums are very 80s sounding. Played by Pat Mastelotto, who would sort of later go on to be in King Crimson, of course, most famously. But he's the drummer on this album. Well worth checking out if you haven't sort of sat down and listened to it. And then the last album we're going to have a look at, again, this is like me going back to being a 13-year-old, or a 12-year-old even, because I hadn't quite turned 13 in February of 1984. And this was my introduction to this artist as well. It's his second album. It was his absolute breakthrough album. I am, of course, talking about Weird Al Yankovic in 3D. This, of course, has his mega smash hit, Eat It. Fun fact, here in Australia, Michael Jackson's Beat It got to number 3 on the charts, I think it was. But Weird Al's Eat It got all the way to number 1. It's the only number 1 he's had anywhere in the world as far as I know. So he's always had a real sort of connection with Australia because of that. You know, had his first huge single here. I mean, it was big in the US too, but not as big. But you've also got some wonderful parodies on here. You've got the Brady Bunch, which is a wonderful parody of Safety Dance by Men Without Hats. You've got I Lost on Jeopardy, which is, of course, a parody of Jeopardy by Greg Kinband. Sorry, pardon my cats killing each other in the background. You've got King of Suede, which is a parody of The Police's King of Pain. You've got the theme to Rocky 13, which is a parody of The Eye of the Tiger. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. But you also got some great originals on here. Midnight Star, which is, you know, sort of a really funny song about tabloid newspapers, supermarket tabloids, they call them in the US, with those really sort of ridiculous stories that they have in them. You've got his first ever polka medley, Polkas on 45. And it always touched me that the very first song in his very first polka medley is a Devo song. It's Jocko Homo. So you've got Mr. Popeil, which is a wonderful, it's an original song, but it's done in the style of the B-52s, and it's absolutely, he nails it. You've got The Great That Boy Could Dance, and then you've got his first real sort of epic album closer in Nature Trail to Hell, which is sort of like a song about this trailer for this really gory horror film. But this album absolutely started my love affair with Weird Al Yankovic, which continues to this day. My son and I went and saw him when he last toured here, which was early last year, about 12 months ago in fact. Absolutely wonderful. We love Weird Al in this household, so there you go. That's my 10 anniversary albums for the month of February 2024. As I said at the beginning, please let me know in the comments which albums I left out, which you think I should have included. Because sometimes they're the ones that were in my longer list, and sometimes they're ones I never ever thought of. And I absolutely love it when you guys come up with those. Please do like, share and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted, so if you want to look at some of my other anniversary album shows, there's a playlist for those. If you want to have a look at some of my studio albums ranked shows, like the XTC one I mentioned, there's a playlist for those. If you want to see my appearances on other people's channels, there's also a playlist for those. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at bicyclelegs on Instagram and Twitter, and I have a dedicated bicyclelegs Facebook page. Links are all in the description. Please come and give those all a follow and join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.